What's up, everybody? It's the waitingfornextyear.com podcast. I had a better day than you did. I just interviewed Coach Lou Holtz, who you all know from ESPN, Notre Dame. He was even an assistant coach with the Buckeyes back in 1968, and I got a chance to talk to him about that, as well as the 2015 Buckeyes and what they're facing as they take on Virginia Tech on Monday and the rest of their season as the defending champions who are looking to repeat. Before we get to Coach Holtz, and that's coming in short order, I need to let everybody know that this podcast is sponsored by Audible.com. You can get a free trial at audibletrial.com/WFNY, audibletrial.com/WFNY. You get to download one free audiobook on a 30-day trial, and how it works is you pay your money, and every month you get audiobooks. So this will keep you, quote-unquote, reading. There are lots and lots of titles to choose from, over 180,000, more than you could ever listen to, I'm guessing, and adding more every day. So try it out. I actually do use this service. My wife and I love it. You should try it. audibletrial.com/WFNY, audibletrial.com/WFNY. And now, without further ado, Coach Lou Holtz. As promised, here is Coach Lou Holtz. It's an honor to have him on the waitingfornextyear.com podcast, home of many, many Buckeyes fans and Big Ten fans. First of all, congratulations on the new job at Sirius XM, Coach Holtz.
Well, thank you. I'm delighted. It'll keep my mind active, but more importantly, I don't have to go through security. I don't have to get on an airplane. I usually do it right from my home and not be far from the golf course or my wife.
Well, and that was something interesting I noticed in the press about your latest move, is that you're going to be talking about some golf.
Oh, absolutely. I love golf. We've already done one golf show, and I think that they were very pleased with it. It's just something that there's a great similarity between golf and football. It's competitive, but you can't blame anybody else in golf but yourself. But I've really enjoyed doing that golf show, and football will take care of itself.
Yeah, well, and the reason that you're out talking to people today is with Kingsford Charcoal. You're targeting sportsmanship and talking specifically about that. And it had me wondering: do you think the modern world, with the internet and the increased media coverage and all the extra exposure that fans have to one another, has made sportsmanship, has impacted it negatively?
I think that's a little bit about society, but Craig, if you go back to last year, remember everybody said, well, the Big 12 wasn't good enough. That's why they got the shaft, and Big 10 was really down. Nobody should be in that playoff. The SEC is absolutely great. The SEC loses 5 conference games, and everybody takes delight, and everybody badmouths everybody. And I've teamed up with Kingsford Charcoal in order to try to put an end to all this conference squabbling. And so what we're asking people to do is, we don't care who you root for, but go to Kingsford.com and just ask there, if you go to Kingsford.com and send a barbecue recipe and an invite to a friend and say something good about another conference, you have a chance to go to the national championship game in Arizona. And all we want to do is get people to understand that one conference is the same as the other. Just because your team might win a game in the conference doesn't mean that other conference is bad. And so we'd just like to see good sportsmanship. And I agree with you, Craig. I don't think we have near enough good sportsmanship. And that's what Kingsford Charcoal is trying to do.
When, especially in this modern age, a website like ours with the podcast and everything, we kind of live on Twitter, and I think that it's actually getting a little bit better because well, first of all, I don't think it could have gotten much worse with people sniping at each other. It just seemed like a good way to roast each other. But now I applaud the efforts. I think it's really easy to just say nice things to people, and it sure makes it much easier to go to bed at night.
Oh, it does. And if you burn down your neighbor's house, that isn't going to improve the value of your home whatsoever. But, you know, what really started, Craig, if you go look at this, been building for a while. The SEC won, 7 straight national championships, and everybody felt, well, they got a break. And when LSU ended up playing Alabama the second time in the championship game. And then now that you only have 5 major conferences and only 4 of them are going to get an invite, everybody's trying to promote their conference, tear down the others, and that's not what college football is all about. It should be good sportsmanship. And what really upsets me is when I see an athlete try to upmanship or downgrade another player, because I know the sacrifice that other team made, the pain they went through lifting weights, working out all summer. I know how much time the coach has spent away from his family. I know how difficult it is. So you should show respect for what the other person's gone through. And if you understand that, it will have good sportsmanship.
And how much does sportsmanship play in? I know you do a lot of motivational speaking, and you talk all over the country to different groups. How much of that is focused on sportsmanship in itself?
Well, I have a simple philosophy to just remember this. There's never a right time to do the wrong thing. There's never a wrong time to do the right thing. You just follow that, you won't have any problem. For example, I do not think it's right to find a teammate's wallet before he lost it. Oh, I found his wallet. Yeah, but he hadn't lost it yet. That's called stealing, son. Just do the right thing. If you do the right thing, rule number 2, do the best you can. Not everybody can be All-American, not everybody first team, but everybody can be the best he can be. And rule number 3, show people you care. Everybody has a difficult time. Everybody needs a kind word. My wife and I are different as night and day. She said opposites attract and then attack. And she's a cancer survivor. She doesn't do interviews. She's done one in her life because they had to do with cancer. They said, "What'd you learn from having cancer?" And she said, "I learned how much my family loved me." Well, we didn't love her anymore. We showed it. That's what happens. We wait for somebody to have a catastrophe before we come to their aid when we should do it before.
Well, you're full of words of wisdom, but before I let you go, I want to make sure we talk about some Ohio State specifically. I'm sure a lot of younger Buckeyes fans, especially the ones who celebrated the national championship last year, don't realize that you coached on a national championship winning Buckeye team back in 1968, went undefeated, beat that team up north, won the Rose Bowl. Is there any lasting memory or a couple of specific things that you'd want to say to Buckeye fans about that experience?
Yeah, it was a great experience coaching for Woody Hayes. I learned so much from him. He's such a tremendous individual. The thing that I talked to the Ohio State football team last spring, and it might not be what Urban wanted me to say, but here's what I told him. We won that national championship, Craig, with 16 sophomore starters. That's when freshmen weren't eligible. And we lost the championship on the last game of their junior year and the last game of their senior year. Greatest freshman basketball team at Ohio State. Havlicek, Siegfried, Lucas, Knight, etc. Won the national championship as sophomores, lost at the last game their junior year and their senior year. Now, Ohio State won the national championship last year with predominantly a sophomore team. You look at J.T. Barrett, you look at Bose, you go on and on. But I think that they're going to have the same difficulties that Ohio State had in '69. Remember this. They lost to a young coach at Michigan by the name of Bo Schembechler, who came in. We beat Michigan the preceding year to clinch the Big Ten championship, and that's when we scored late in the game. Craig went for 2, made it, and beat Michigan 50-14. And they asked Woody why he went for 2. He said they wouldn't let me go for 3. Well, the very next year, Bo Schembechler upset him. Now, we have a young coach at Michigan by the name of Jim Harbaugh, and he's got a quarterback who transferred from Iowa, who started there, did a pretty good job protecting the ball. And I think that is the trap game for Ohio State is Michigan. I hate to say it because you learn to dislike Michigan when you're out there with Woody.
All right, so and you already answered my next question because I was going to ask you, if there was what's the biggest risk for the Buckeyes heading into a season where they're favored, and obviously you've identified what you think could be a trap game, and I certainly respect that opinion. But is there something in their preparation or believing their hype, how difficult is it to follow up that championship year, not necessarily from the matchup standpoint, but just from a preparation and not believing in, not reading your own news clips?
Well, I think that Urban Meyer has a real good handle on it. When I talked to him last spring, he has a lot of veterans come back. How much does he practice them? How much physical work does he do with them? How much injury does he risk, and yet at the same time is walking a thin line to make sure they're ready. They have a lot of competitions of various things. When you take a Braxton Miller and you look at his stats, player of the year, 2 years in the Big Ten, and he can't be your quarterback. He's got to move the H-back. You look at J.T. Barrett, until he's injured, he had Heisman Award-winning statistic, Ezekiel Elliott, etc. But I think keeping them focused is very difficult. But I do not believe Ohio State will go undefeated. And why that? Because that's just too hard to do. I remember we went undefeated in 88, and then in 89 we won our first 11 football game before we got beat, lost one game. It's just hard to stay on top of it. And even last year, they struggled a little bit against Penn State. I think the Big Ten is going to be much better this year. I think Christian Hackenberg had a terrible year for Penn State, and yet he's a tremendous talent. I think Wisconsin might not be as good, but Michigan State should be. What I shocked that Connor Cook, the great quarterback, is not Captain Cook because they didn't elect him captain. That doesn't speak well with a guy who's done much for the program. So you go on, but I've never seen a year where the Big Ten Conference has more question marks, and yet it's going to be more exciting. You look at some of the great quarterbacks coming back, and you look at some of the schools that have all kinds of problems. Illinois has a new coach in Bill Q, but you go look at the two stalwarts who have been in that league forever, Pat Fitzgerald and the young man at Iowa, Kirk Ferentz. They have not been to a bowl game for the last couple of years. So, and there's so many question marks going on, and I think the Big Ten will be the most interesting conference. And this year, people won't be saying, well, nobody from the Big Ten is going to be in the playoff.
Should Ohio State fans be afraid of Virginia Tech on Monday night?
Not unless they're worried about him suing them because they ran up the score on them. I was with Herbert. Herbert was saying, gee, man, last year losing Virginia Tech, bad. Oh, that. I said, yeah, had you beaten Virginia Tech, you might have won the national championship. That might have been a thing of content. Forget that. The good Lord put eyes in front of your head rather than back so you can see where you're going rather than where you've been.
Thank you so much for spending time today with us, Coach Holtz. And just remind everybody, Kingsford, the hashtag is BBQ Diplomacy, and we're trying to raise awareness, sportsmanship. All you have to do is say nice things to other people.
And I thank you so much. It's a great cause, and it's one that's certainly needed.
All right. Thanks very much, Coach Holtz. Hopefully we can do it again sometime.
That'll be your choice.